when I think of your tenure with the Patriots, I think of your retirement ceremony. Robert Kraft made sure you went out, on a red carpet. And he rolled everything out because that's how much he cares about his players and how much players mean to him. What is it like being around Robert Kraft and you getting to know him over the years? Because as we saw, in a business where it's always cold, it's always, calculated. It's sorry, bud, this is the business. I got to fire you.
Yep.
He's one of the few owners that actually shows that human side to him.
Oh, their family's awesome. I said, I never played for any other organization, but, Robert Kraft, Jonathan Kraft, their entire family, they're great. They're very personable. They walk through the locker room. They'll speak to you, have conversations with you, have a great relationship with them. So they definitely have that human side of them. And like I said, you love, Kraft taking, accountability for, hiring Mayo and firing him, in one season or, very short time period. It's good to see him take accountability for it. I said it's definitely tough, tough for Mayo. Listen, I don't know what their relationship would be like going forward. If Mayo feels a certain type of way, or like say they hire, Mike Vrabel, I'd feel kind of a certain type of way. If you fire me after 6 or 7 months, and then you hire a guy who I probably thought you wanted to hire anyway in the first place, probably last season. So, I don't know whether the true wording and Mayo's contract with that he was automatically going to be the next coach. That's the thing that's been going around, and maybe he just wanted to fulfill that promise for him. And then if things didn't look great, then he would kind of move forward and try and find that next coach. But I would say that he's a great person. I have no issues with Kraft whatsoever. So their family is very, very awesome. Do a lot of great stuff in the community too.
James, do you think maybe because of that tie? Because of, hey, it could look like I wanted Vrabel to begin with, another former player, let's give him a chance now. Do you think because of that, maybe that's an advantage to a Ben Johnson, someone who's sort of from the outside coming in? Do you think Robert Kraft would maybe lean that direction and sort of get away from the playing tree as far as bringing them in as coaches? Or do you think that's an advantage for Vrabel, obviously, because he did play?
I think potentially gives Vrabel a little bit more of an edge, but I just hope, their entire family do their due diligence, not just hand it, straight to Vrabel based off a previous relationship. I think you do your interviews, find some other, potentially good candidates that you may think may fit, and give them a fair chance. Because not to say that Vrabel won't walk in and do a good job, but I said you may get wowed by somebody else, and they potentially could be a good coach too. So just make sure you're taking all these interviews, or actually interviewing legit people that you think can help.
Thank you, James.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, and I agree with that. I mean, one of the best parts or one of the most important parts, I should say, of opening up a head coaching search or any search, you interview the candidates. That's information gathering. Right. The Chargers, you go back a year ago, they knew they were going to get Jim Harbaugh. They still did a full-fledged coaching search. Yeah. And I agree with both of you that it was a funny way they did the interviews with a Byron Leftwich or a Pep Hamilton. Mm-hmm. But to that end, I hope they walk away from those interviews going, Pep Hamilton's a good quarterbacks coach. I like his outlook. Yep. And he was a great play caller when he was with Michigan.
Yes, he was.
He was a great play caller when he was with Houston. Exactly. So I agree with you. Look, the pie in the sky, I guess you'd say, is Mike Vrabel. But I don't want to see ownership lock in again and just go with him because they want him. Because, look, if they do the full search and it's Mike Vrabel as head coach and Josh McDaniels as offensive coordinator, and they truly did a full search and they think those are the best candidates, great. But if they just go with them because we know Mike, we know Josh, it's familiarity, then it's doing wrong by the fans and it could be doing wrong by the franchise. So I agree with your point on that one, James, of do the full search, don't do anything funny. They're not the first, and they won't be the last team to make a sham of the Rooney Rule, and that's what stinks. It's a good rule to give those guys in those rooms, but that's what stinks. And I wish I had an answer for it. I don't, but I recognize that happens. I hope the Krafts, they saw this last season. What stuck out to me about Robert Kraft was how much he took it to heart, that he really goes into the search, and he makes sure he doesn't leave any stone unturned. And set up another coach for failure. He needs to set up the franchise, Drake May, everyone, the fans, up for success. I know it was a long-winded, kind of response to that. James, the one thing I want to ask is that when you looked back on your time with the Patriots, and now you see that they're this point moving forward, and you mentioned the word culture. Whatever coach has to come in has to establish a culture. It's thrown around so much in sports and everywhere in life. Not just what the Patriots culture was. We know it was do your job. Everyone has an edge.
No days off.
Yeah, exactly. No days off. The team comes first. Everything like that. But aside of what the culture was for the Patriots, what makes a culture get established? What do you, in your mind, is essential for that to happen? Any culture?
Well, I mean, I think it starts with the coach first and foremost, being accountable, for his actions, the coaches being accountable. And I think you have to have, players, your best players, more than likely, them be accountable as well. Them practicing hard, them watching film, them actually their performance, showing up on the field week in and week out. Got to give, those young players and new players that come into your team, something kind of like that reference point in a sense, like, okay, this is the way they do things here. Like, I want to be a part of that, or this can work for me. If your coach is doing not being the same person every day, or he's kind of wishy-washy, and the players are kind of wishy-washy, it's like I don't necessarily know what direction this franchise is going or what they're trying to get accomplished here. I think that's when you don't necessarily have a culture built. And I say when I walked into the building, I said there's a standard that was set already. Like, okay, this is the way we work. This is the way we watch film. This is the way we meet. This is the way we walk through. Like, either you kind of get with it, or we'll find somebody else that really fits our program. So I think that's what it's all about, and it starts at the top. Obviously, with Robert Kraft, him selecting that person, and then that person has to create a standard, and it could be a multitude of different ways that it works. You see different types of cultures all throughout the league. We did it, our way. In New England, Detroit's doing it their way. You got Philly doing it their way over there. You got Kansas City, they're doing it a certain type of way. So there's no one way to do it. It's just you find what the coach finds what works for him, and his players, and you're gonna have to make adjustments to it, as well based on your roster.
Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down, so I'm going to vibe with you here. Let's say we get our new head coach. Let's say the culture and the identity is established. We got all that. Framework's there. Put that GM hat on. GM James. I mean, how are we building around this kid, Drake May, bro? Now, I know you're a running back, so are we going offensive line? We drafting Ashton Genty? What we doing? How we building around this kid, man? I need to know.
I mean, for me at number 4 overall, I'm just taking the best person available. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily have to be the offensive lineman, in my opinion. If it's Travis Hunter, if it's Will Johnson, it's Will Johnson. They think it's McMillan, whoever they feel is the best player available at number 4. I'm selecting him. Throughout the draft, you're definitely continue to draft some young offensive linemen for sure at some point. And then I think you have to address the receiver position as well. Whether that's in the draft or a free agency, whether it's a T. Higgins, or whether you try and trade back in the draft, see if you can get somebody through trading back, getting a veteran and staying in the first round somehow within the top 10 picks or so. There's different ways of attacking it, but definitely with that number 4 overall pick, I'm just picking the best player I think is available. If it's an offensive lineman, that's perfectly fine too. Will Campbell, Banks, out of Texas. I think there's enough talent, at that, within that top 10 to where you can't go wrong with whoever you select that you feel fits your team.
You said it. They need Christian Gonzalez is great. Need another corner. Need a receiver.
Yeah,
Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter out of Penn State's a freak. They need help on the pass rush. Sitting at 4.
Yeah, it is.
Exactly. Is there someone you've been from watching college football this year that there's a player like, man, that kid is going to be special in the NFL?
There's quite a few of those guys. Like I love watching Travis Hunter. I think he'd be a great addition. He's a guy who's willing to tackle at corner. He can play in the slot, play outside. He has great ball skills. So I think that's always when we would go into meetings with Josh McDaniels. There's some guys who really know how to get after the ball. Guys like Darrelle Revis, Xavier Howard when he's with the Dolphins, and some of those guys, you want to steer away from throwing the ball their direction because when it goes there, they know how to make a play on it and potentially create a turnover. I think he's one of those guys. I think Will Johnson's one of those guys. He is talented. And Abdul Carter, too. I think the only thing on Abdul Carter, he's not the biggest. He's very explosive. He's not the biggest. He definitely can create, a lot of pressure off the edge and everything. I'm not sure him in the run game, like how he's worried. I have to watch more tape on that as far as whether he's good, as far as stopping the run too. So I have to watch a little bit more tape on some of these other guys. And I like the way Will Campbell talks too, the way that interview he had to present the year, the way he described what happens, when an offensive lineman gives up a sack versus the edge rusher when he gets a sack or whatever it may be. I like his mentality, so I definitely like the idea of him as well.